Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Irfan, and I'll be discussing in brief regarding AFP surveillance. So, AFP or acute flaccid paralysis surveillance is a crucial tool in fight against poliovirus. So, what is AFP surveillance? Under the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, surveillance for poliomyelitis is conducted through investigation of acute flaccid paralysis cases. Polio eradication depends on strong surveillance system, and AFP surveillance helps detect poliovirus transmission early by monitoring all cases of sudden muscle weakness in children under 15 years of age. So, definition of an acute flaccid paralysis. So, acute flaccid paralysis is defined as sudden onset weakness and floppiness in any part of the body in a child less than 15 years of age, or paralysis in a person of any age in whom polio is suspected. It helps to detect areas of transmission, directs the immunization activity, and establishes absence of virus. So why AFP surveillance instead of polio specific surveillance? So polio surveillance based on clinical diagnosis alone is insufficient due to ambiguous signs and varying medical expertise. To avoid missed cases, all AFP cases are reported and investigated. Also, what are the other causes of AFP other than polioviruses? It is Guillain-Barré syndrome, traumatic neuritis, transverse myelitis. And the non-polio AFP rate helps assess the surveillance sensitivity, ensuring polio cases are detected if transmission occurs. So if we are screening actively for cases of acute flaccid paralysis and our screening rate is good, it ensures that polio cases will also be not missed. So in other parts of the world, at least one case of AFP excluding polio occurs annually for every 1 lakh children less than 15 years of age. So this is referred to as background rate of AFP among children. A country such as in India, where the incidence of conditions such as traumatic neuritis and AFP caused by other non-polio enteroviruses is very high, the background non-polio AFP rate is undoubtedly much higher than 1 per 1 lakh. As per the GPSAP, countries in WHO Southeast Asia region should achieve a NP-AFP rate of at least more than or equal to 2 per 1 lakh at the national and the subnational level. So this pie chart depicts the frequency of distribution of acute flaccid paralysis. This is taken from a tertiary care center in Kashmir. So what is the case definition and selection? Any child under 15 Any child under 15 with sudden flaccid paralysis is investigated for AFP and includes every case with current flaccid paralysis, history of any flaccid paralysis at any time during current illness, and borderline or ambiguous clinical presentation. So it is intentionally broadened to maximize the sensitivity so that each case of polio is detected. All cases of acute flaccid paralysis should be reported irrespective of diagnosis within 6 months of onset. The consequences of missing a case of polio are more serious than occasional, including an ambiguous case, especially during the final stages of polio eradication. So, what should not be included? So, don't include as a AFP if there is no evidence of acute flaccid paralysis at the time of examination or any time during illness, or if the onset of paralysis is more than 6 months prior to notification. So this step by step of a case investigation timeline. So once AFP is reported by a physician or a health unit or any other source, the DIO or SMO or any other designated surveillance nodal officer must personally see the case to ascertain if the case meets the AFP case definition. So day zero is the report AFP case and begin the investigation. It usually, after informing them, it should begin within 48 hours, and he will examine the child, should fill a CIF form, assign a EPID, a unique number, and travel history in the recent 35 days. And within 40 days, 14 days should collect two stool samples, which should be minimum 24 hours apart, because the maximum shedding of poliovirus happens within 14 days of onset of flaccid paralysis. And within 16 days, there should be a follow-up check for residual weakness. And ongoing should ensure sample transport under strict cold chain and a cross notification system. So this is a sample of a CIF form. So if we go in brief, go in detail in this, there is a first column is regarding a unique identification EPID number which will be put, which will be for future references. Then the general demographic, the history of the patient, including his address details. Then it goes to give the onset of symptoms, then the travel history within the last 35 days. So it records the general demographic, the immunization history. There is a timeline mentioned which denotes the 35 days travel history. Then there is a column for detailed motor system examination. There is a column for stool sample collection date, and there is a column for further analysis at 60 days. So collection and transport of stool samples. So adequate stool sample. So it should be collected within 14 days of paralysis onset and should be at least 2 hours apart. So there should be two stool samples, and the adequate volume is mentioned as 8 to 10 grams. Or for a normal measurement, we can take it as a size of an adult thumb, and it should arrive at the WHO accredited laboratory in a good condition. That is, it should not be desiccated, there should not be any leakage, and there should be proper documentation and evidence regarding the cold chain. And it should be maintained at a cold chain of 2 to 8 degree Celsius. And below, I have mentioned two images. On the left side, there is a screw capped stool container with a label, which is the preferred method of transport. And on the right side, there are rectal tubes, which is more used in critically ill children, and it's a less preferred method. So reporting and lab testing. So when the stool sample reaches the WHO accredited laboratory, step one is the primary isolation of poliovirus. It's using cell culture. So two cell lines are used, and first, if it grows, and two cell lines are used, and growth of any virus in these cell lines is revealed by the development of a specific cytopathic effect observed under the microscope. Normally, this CP appears within 5 days of inoculation, but if any culture is negative after 5 days, a blind passage is done on fresh cell lines and watched for another 5 days before declaring the sample negative. So all poliovirus isolates from the primary isolation is then given step 2, which is the intratypic differentiation test by RT-PCR to determine what is the strain of the poliovirus, whether it's a wild poliovirus or not. And if it's a wild poliovirus, it again goes to the third step, which is the genetic sequencing, which is done for the detailed epidemiological data, which is generally carried out in ICMR Mumbai. And there's a new direct detection of poliovirus in the stool sample using RNA primers, which has a very good turnover time. And if there is any positive uh, uh, virus detected in this, we usually go for the genetic sequencing for further. So the 60-day follow-up. So the 60-day follow-up is to be done as soon as possible after the 60 days of onset of paralysis, and preferably within 17 days. In certain categories of AFP cases, to determine the presence or absence of residual paralysis. The presence of residual paralysis at this time is supporting the evidence that cause of paralysis can be due to poliovirus. The 60-day follow-up should not be done before 60 days of onset of paralysis. So the following category should undergo the 60-day follow-up. AFP cases with inadequate stool specimen collection, AFP cases with isolation of vaccine virus, and AFP cases with isolation of wild poliovirus or vaccine-derived poliovirus. So the key takeaways are: early case detection is critical, timely reporting ensures response, and proper sample handling maintains accuracy. So on the right side, there is a global polio status map, which is taken from the Global Polio Eradication Program website, which shows that the two endemic countries are there where there is wild poliovirus, and outbreak of countries are 46 with variant polioviruses. Thank you. Report AFP cases immediately and help keep the world polio-free virus. Thank you.